Hey guys, welcome back to another weekly developer diary. So for this week I've got a little bit to show you in terms of the overworld of the game, as well as a small bit of art, and just talk through what I've been theorying out for the game. So first of all, if I just run the game, the first thing I did was I fixed the collision bug. Right, I used to have a bug where I don't know what exactly was causing it. It was just making it so the player couldn't walk onto tiles that were like directly below one. But it was only doing it sometimes, and it was a very odd issue. But essentially, I just remade the tile map, and that seemed to fix the issue. So now I can walk anywhere in between these 1x1 gaps, and there's no problems at all. I can't walk into anything that's solid, like so, and that all works correctly. Other than that, if I walk into this long grass here, you'll see in the console any second now. As you can see there, I got two there. Enemy encountered, which essentially how that works is if I'm stepping on anything I put on this specific like tile map of called encounterable, then whenever the player walks on there, there's a 1 in 10 chance of it starting an encounter. So this is what will trigger the transition to a turn-based battle, similar to like Pokemon and probably like Final Fantasy and a lot of different RPGs. As you can see there, another enemy encounter. It works for all this different grass, like so. And then, other than that, I've got a basic dialogue system right now. So if I go up to this NPC and press the Z key, line 1, and then I just keep pressing it, and it just goes through all his lines and then stops talking with him. I can talk to him whenever, and I can talk to him from like any direction or anything. So then in there I can use that to help tell the narrative of being able to go up to NPCs and hear what they have to say. And for this NPC, what I did was I took a old design I made of this sort of like rogue looking character, like scruffy hair and like a cape and his blue shirt, and then these like grey and black pants and shoes, and just made like a chibi version of that, which I think came out quite well. So as for what else I've been doing, the main thing I've been doing is just sort of working out in my head and jotting down on paper how the battle system's going to work exactly. So right now, just on some paper in front of me, I've got it jotted down as the way I think I'm going to do it, because I've done turn-based combat before, and the way I did that was I transitioned to a different scene. So in Unity you have scenes, and I basically had, if you start a battle, go to the next scene, and then all the battle stuff's in there. But I discussed that with my tutor, and he suggested a better way of doing it would be pretty much having the battle be something in the same scene, but it's just completely off screen. Because the main benefit for this is, for example, if a battle starts, and then essentially it disables everything in the overworld, moves the camera, say, over here where there's nothing, and then the battle happens here in the scene, and once that battle ends, it disables the stuff for the battle, and goes back to the overworld. The main benefit of that is, if you're going from this big overworld scene to a battle scene all the time, you're constantly having to load and unload the whole overworld just for every battle. Whereas, which obviously can be quite demanding, whereas just simply moving the camera and disabling objects and enabling objects is a lot less taxing for a computer to do. So that's probably the way I want to go about it. And the way I've sort of jotted it down is I'll have a game state. I think the way I want to do it is having a sort of game state function. That'll mean if game state equals overworld, then I can walk around the overworld as normal. But then if a battle encounter is triggered, like any second now, There you go. So once a battle is triggered, what will happen is the game state will then be changed to a battle state, where the camera will be the overworld and like the player movement will all be disabled, so you can't move your player while you're in a battle, and the camera will move to where the battle scene will be created, say down here for example, completely out of the way. Then what will happen is the way the battle will work is it'll start with a player turn, where the player will be able to choose from a small menu of actions. So they might be able to choose from a attack, might be they can choose a couple different attacks, or maybe they can choose a sword attack, a throw a potion attack, and a heal action. Once they choose that action, it'll then enter the second phase, which will be the action timing phase. So for example, for a sword attack, the player might have to time pressing the attack button in time with the sword attack animation on the enemy. And depending on how well their timing is, they'll do more or less damage. So on a perfect timing, they might do 5 damage. On a good timing, they might do 3 damage. And on a bad timing, they might do 1 damage or might miss entirely. And then once the attack has landed, it has to deal the appropriate effect or damage to the enemy. So in a sword attack's case, it would be deal the certain amount of damage depending on the attack timing. And then once that's occurred and it's played the animation and all that timing's done, it has to transition to the enemy turn. And what will happen then is the enemy will perform either an attack or an action. So the enemy might perform, say, a charge attack, for example. So for example, if I get the Triceratops up for a reference, say the Triceratops does a charge attack on the player, which it will be this player sprite in the actual battle. What will happen is that it will have an animation or an effect showing the timing for the charge attack, and you'll have to time a button press with when the attack lands on you in order to try and block the most damage possible. So for example, it'll have a similar rating system to you attacking, but in this case the rating will determine how much damage you block. So the better rating you have the better timing you have on your block, the more damage you'll end up blocking, and you'll take less damage as a result. So then once it's had the enemy turn phase, it will then go back to the player turn. It will then have to do the appropriate effect, so taking damage on the player or something along those lines. And then it will transition back to the player turn, and it will just loop once more, and that will infinitely loop until the enemy or all enemies are defeated. In that case, it will then disable everything in the battle system. So all the battle stuff will be disabled, and the game state will then change back from the battle game state to the overworld, and that will mean it was then returned to the player walking around and being able to just explore again once more because the battle's now ended. So that's how I've sort of theoried out how it's going to work. So for the coming week, I'm probably going to make a start on trying to create the battle system. Because for this past week I've just been doing a decent amount of stuff in the overworld, so getting the encounters and the basic dialogue system. So I think that sums up everything for this week. Other than that, I've just been doing work on my, for my job as a games research assistant, and that's going pretty well. But yeah, I think that sums up everything for this week. Because again, I don't want to show a ton of that because I think it's probably best to keep it confidential. But yeah, I think that's all I can show. So thanks for watching, guys. And yeah, for next week, I'm going to try and get started on the battle system. So I'll see you all next week. Alright, peace.